Hello, hello. On this lovely, lovely afternoon, and by lovely, I mean very rainy and kind of gross, actually. This afternoon, I want to talk about how you can find the right English teacher. And make sure you watch or listen to the end because I talk about how you might be able to have a class with me one day. So, finding the right English teacher for you can kind of be a little bit like dating. It requires some time, some patience, trying different people, and trying to figure out do I like this person? Is this person going to help me the way that I want to be helped? There are lots of things to consider, and it can actually be a really scary, overwhelming process. So, today we are going to talk about how to make it a little bit less scary, a little bit less overwhelming. Because if you are in the market for an English teacher, then that means you are taking a very big step in your English journey. And that is to be celebrated. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I want to start taking English classes, but I have no idea where to start. Fair enough. Don't worry, I got you. So, luckily, teaching English is actually a pretty big industry. There are a lot of places you can look for the perfect English teacher for you. So, for example, probably the simplest and most straightforward option is online platforms. There are really popular online platforms where you can find English teachers. For example, iTalki or Preply or Cambly. Those are all really popular. I'm not sponsored or affiliated with any of them. Now, let's say you want someone face to face, not online. Okay, there might be some local options available to you. So think about your local college or university, or there might be a local language school, or there might be advertisements in your local newspaper. There might be some local options that are open to you for exploring. I know here in my local area, probably the first place I would look would be the library. But there's also things like professional networks. So think like LinkedIn. LinkedIn would be a good place to start if you're looking for something with more professional vibes. Now, of course, we do live in the era of social media. So, also places like Instagram can be a great place to try to find English teachers. And even if you aren't able to find an English teacher on Instagram, you might find, while searching for one, you might find someone with some really good resources. And that can add some English into your daily social media feed. So, my recommendation is to start with one platform, one resource, and explore 3 to 5 teachers just to get familiar with what's available. Now, you might also be thinking, no way, it's too scary. I don't want to make mistakes in front of someone. I'm not ready for a teacher. It's too scary. Okay, let's talk about it. There can be a lot of value in having a teacher. So, for example, getting completely personalized feedback that is specific to you. Something that's really interesting about habits is when something becomes a habit, it becomes invisible. So if you have habits in your English that are invisible to you, a teacher can point them out. Some teachers also provide personalized learning paths. So they meet you and then they create lessons for you in a very structured way. Some people really like that kind of structure, but it can also, maybe most importantly, provide you with accountability. Accountability can be a really important part of staying consistent with your English. An English teacher is going to expect you to show up, to try. And that can keep you accountable. That can keep you consistent. A good English teacher should also create a space that is safe for you to practice and to make mistakes. If your teacher is being really judgy about your mistakes, run. A teacher should be a coach, not a judge. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I want to take classes, but it's too expensive. Fair. Good quality teachers can be expensive because they have experience and they can give you a lot of value in every class. So having regular classes can be quite expensive. And there are benefits to putting money into learning English. Again, it relates back to accountability. If you pay for something, you're more likely to stay committed and consistent with it. But let's say that you're on a tight budget and you can't really spend money on an English teacher. Fair enough. Luckily, we live in the 21st century. We live in a fantastic time to be a learner of anything. So you have options available to you that are cheaper or free, like YouTube, for example, where you might be watching this right now. There are YouTube videos, podcast episodes, language exchange apps, like, for example, HelloTalk. HelloTalk gives you the opportunity to connect with people who are learning your language, and you can have a little language exchange. You might also consider options that are a little cheaper, like group classes. Group classes are typically not as expensive as private classes. And let's go back to the accountability thing again. Instead of having weekly classes with a teacher, maybe you have one class a month with that teacher, and it acts more like a check-in instead of structured content. So you would be studying on your own, learning on your own, but then once a month, you check in with a teacher, see how it's going, ask some questions, get some advice, and then go another month studying on your own. Something that you can also look for is, especially on these teaching platforms, look for teachers who don't have so much experience, because then they will probably not be so expensive and they might be more open to experimenting and trying new things. There is value that comes from newer teachers, teachers with not so much experience. You can also try to look for teachers who are not native speakers. Maybe they're at a really high level. That can also be an option to you. It might be a little bit cheaper. So let's say you go on a teaching platform. You're ready, you have some money, You want to book a class. Okay. How do you decide which teacher? Now, luckily, a lot of these teaching platforms, teachers have to provide a little video introducing themselves. And that, for me, is the best way to assess the teacher's vibes. You want to get a good vibe from that teacher. But while you're looking, you want to keep some questions in mind. Questions like, what's your goal? So, for example, if you are preparing for an exam, you want to make sure you are looking for teachers who have experience helping with exam prep. If you're looking for improving your conversation or practicing your conversation, then you need to look for teachers who are open to having just conversational classes. So think about what's your goal. Another thing to think about is, do you want a native speaker, or do you want someone who also speaks your language? It might be really scary or overwhelming to have a teacher who doesn't speak your language. It might be a little helpful for you mentally, emotionally, to have a teacher who also speaks your native language. Now, personally, I recommend finding a teacher who does not speak your native language, because then it forces you to develop the skill of explaining what you mean using the words you already know. Also, think about your schedule. When are you available to take classes? You need to find a teacher who is also available during those times. Now, let's say you find a couple of teachers. Okay, I do recommend asking a few questions to ask potential teachers. Questions like, what's your background in teaching? Or do you provide structured lessons? What kinds of materials do you use? How do you track progress? And probably, as a teacher, most importantly, what is your cancellation or rescheduling policy? Luckily, many of these platforms will give you a trial lesson so you can have a short, usually 30-minute class with that teacher for a reduced price. And then you can just see. You can ask your questions. You can check the vibes. Are the vibes good? Do they seem really nice, really friendly, or are they going to work for you as a teacher? That way, you can see, you can try it before you buy it, you know? If you are at the B1, B2 level, I highly recommend you think about finding either a teacher or a conversational partner. You are at the level where you want to start building your conversational English, putting into practice the things that you've learned, and also building your confidence. So that's what I recommend. Just remember that finding the right teacher, it's like dating. It takes time, but when you find the right teacher, it's worth it. And hopefully you will be with that teacher for a very long time. One last thing to remember: a teacher is not magic. The teacher cannot do the work for you. You still have to practice. You still have to learn. You have to learn. The teacher is just another resource. Teachers are not magic. Now, if you are interested in having me as a teacher, here's what I'll say about that. I do have a wait list. I already have a lot of students that I've been teaching for years, and I don't want to push them out with a lot of new students. But sometimes I am able to accept new students. If you want to know When I accept new students, join my waitlist. You can go to my website, www.missjeanteaches.com, and there is a place for you to put your email address. So when I accept new students, you will be the first people to know. Good luck, my friends, with your amazing English journey. Until next time, bye.